afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of PropagandaFields. Yes, indeed. Seems to have been a rather positive response, of course, to the last one. So, you know, I'll keep at this. And, of course, we'll now be looking at Langraskaya. And a quick heads up to those, you know, Winter's Mosque. Yes, I will be covering it, but not right away since, you know, two maps with slight variation of the same kind in a row. I think that will quickly turn a bit stale. Instead, we move on to another sort of classic company viewers map. In this case, a Langraskaya, based on the old Langras map, though with some slightly larger variations compared to it. Some changes here and there, for example, and also some vital changes around here. And overall, this map plays out a bit differently compared to, say, some Mosque fuel points are placed at the edges of things. Whereas, you know, previously with Mosque it was rather much closer to the base, but here it's a bit further away. Victory points are also spread out a bit different. In fact, now they're the ones close to the base of this. Actually creates a slightly different dynamic for the map compared to some Mosque already there. Munitions points are also comparatively close. So compared to some Mosque, I mean, again, where fuel was the one previously close and munitions and victory points were far away. It's actually here the exact opposite, more or less. Munitions, victory points closest, fuel points farther away. So of course already there sort of creates a different dynamic. There's also the road basically bisecting the entire map alongside a series of hedgerows, which also creates a series of dynamics, in particular for the northern player around his cut-off point. I mean, it isn't as bad as it used to be, but generally this tends to be a weak spot since a cheeky opponent could sneak up here and go for it. But again, it previously was here, it's now been further moved out, so it's a bit harder to harass, but still, early on in the game, for a northern player, you have to absolutely keep an eye around here. For your opponent will try to cut off and deny access to the fuel point here, munitions and all that. And there's pretty much only this, though at the same time also this does connect. Though of course your opponent might go for both. So these points here for the northern player are vital to keep in mind and to defend if you actually want to have access to any of the resources. So here, similarly down south, it is these 2 points again that are the vital ones. Though, note, due to the sort of geography on the map, this tends to be a lot less harassed. I mean, it can happen, but overall you can sort of pull off a slightly more neater trick. For example, you can just wire this off, in which case your opponent has to take a much longer path, sort of more circular, which can also get him into a few troubles, sort of get to it. You can also mine it. And also, by the way, already here, sort of talking briefly about mining, this is also a good spot to mine. Or here, for example, where you try to sort of round the corner and, oh dear, something blew up in my face. But generally a common move for a lot of players actually go straight for the victory point here, right next to the base, while another maybe secures here. Fuel point and munitions, of course, quite common as well, though generally you will see players going for the fuel point, but it's not too uncommon either to see munitions first secured on this map. And of course you might notice around both munitions point there are a series of structures, though again due to geography they are actually of quite different utility. This building, for example, is quite popular, it's quite strong as well if properly sort of reinforced with the right materials and men, since overall it can actually cover quite a bit of sort of resources, munitions, fuel almost. I mean, there's a slight path here. If you're clever, you can sort of keep things, well, you can cover here and overall here. So I mean, overall it can actually cover a lot, for example, with the heavy machine gun, even a bit of infantry, and it's not half bad for infantry either. A little tip is actually to sort of use these bits of terrain here as markers to actually lay down some barbed wire to ensure your opponent, for example, can't sneak up here and to make a direct rush for the building with a grenade, molotov or something similar. Also a bit of barbed wire here maybe, that way you can make it a bit tougher sort of deal with if you're fighting from the north. From the south, I mean, you can sort of try, but then overall you might be relying more on this building sort of cover here and here with a heavy machine gun. You can still remain here, but it's a bit trickier then, a bit trickier. This viewpoint is also a bit harder to sort of hold overall. It's a bit further removed from everything. There's a lot less cover around. So in that regard, it's also one that can sort of be easily harassed. So that's also something to keep in mind. And certainly also check here much wire off or mine this spot around here. Conversely, the other viewpoint is actually a bit easier to defend. There's a lot more cover around. So generally, if you sort of set something up there, it's a bit easier. Plus, I mean, it's more of in a corner. And overall the terrain again sort of blocks off more. It's less open, as you might notice, so in general you can sort of defend this a bit easier, maybe wire off a bit here or a machine gun or something, though leaving that too much around there better. Plus it's sort of, in terms of how the map flows, for some reason it's a bit more of a blind spot for some people, so it can tend to go a bit more unharassed, in particular since most pressure and most action, due to, if you sort of consider how again the shortest point between two bases generally tends to be around here. Again, that tends to be where most of the fighting will happen, and then sort of no, it's much more open. Again, it sort of flows towards here, as again this basically acts as sort of shield in a sense. It also creates a second interesting dynamic for this map as well. While initially oh, actually, I should probably stick to these buildings here first, but still, these buildings possess less of a value. In particular, this one, while it might seem, oh, it can impressively hold off, this actually creates a huge blind spot because someone could sneak up, pop a grenade or a Molotov, which actually means for the southern player, it's actually a lot less interesting. It's more for the northern player to actually strike down here and cause a mess for the southern player. And this building here can be alright to sort of defend with, but still there's a slight blind spot, but still it works alright, though you might want to sort of wire things off, for example, here, and maybe a bit around here to sort of make it a bit harder for him to rush immediately, just a thought. This one, again, I mean, it's actually more service of the northern player if he wants to harass and, for example, prevent you from easily getting around here. Also, a good spot to mine is here. For example, if you're harassing around here as the northern player, a little thing there to keep in mind as well. Sort of also quickly for infiltration troops, it's not half bad. There's a few structures sort of limited all over the place, though. It's again more for the western and southern player who's going to get hurt by that compared to the northern player. So again, while this is a nasty harassment point, I mean overall there's a lot of sort of smaller things that actually turn out to be in the northern player's favour. Also terrain. And again, the road, the hedgerows, they sort of create a barrier where it's actually easy for the northern player to hold both victory points, set up a defence centred around here, and cause a lot of problems, and can actually make it difficult for the northern player to break through. For example, I mean, he wants to get to the point here, generally he'll have to sort of sneak through here, or get out here, and overall these can easily sort of lock down his choke points with wire or mines, and of course here, he could easily end up into the enemy's line of fire. And if you then want to sort of defend here again, it gets a bit more tricky due to the ring. Note, it's not impossible, and to a certain extent there can be some advantages to the southern player, for example setting up artillery right around here to sort of support more closely to the front line. But, you know, generally I do feel it tends to often sort of favour the northern player to an extent in holding here, though it's not a rule, and it's not a massive advantage, it's just slightly there. And it sort of plays out again different things. I mean, it's a bit easier, for example, certain points here, though again the Fury is easily harassed. On the other hand, here things tend to be a bit easier to hold in some regards, and not perfectly either. And again, they're not huge advantages, they're sort of small, minor ones that I suppose balance each other's out in a sense, if you think about it. So, I mean, that is quite vital to keep in mind. Also, a little fun trick can do generally is to sort of, depending on which side you're on, is sort of wire off these bits of hay here, these hay stacks, to sort of make things a bit more difficult, sort of create a latch point to hold on to either defend from attack from here or an attack from here. And another neat little trick is if you actually attack from the north, you can, or defending from the north, you can actually lay down some barbed wire sort of here to sort of prevent a direct rush up. Otherwise, further mine spots around here, and overall this road here to a certain extent works alright, though that's generally more for the southern player to prevent a sort of direct rush against you. Here also works out decently. This is also a good spot, and this is also a good spot. In essence, I mean, if you're the southern player and you got access to demo charges, you can also consider actually demo charging this building just in case your opponent tries anything funny. I mean, I think that overall sort of describes and captures the dynamics of this map. Some thoughts on strategy and tactics. Alright, mines for here. Well, I mean, it's a lot more open again, and open terrain is sort of a bit trickier, though generally, I mean, you can sort of place a few mines out here, for example. Here's a good spot to mine as well, and demo charging this building, depending on how it works out nicely here again. Maybe a bit around here. S-mines, for example, on the other hand, work right to sort of more funnel your opponent, if you will. And I suppose right around here with all these trees, a good mine could also be placed. But I can, for example, from this angle, be a bit tricky to see there's actually a mine, even if there's a minesweeper, so slight thought there, if you will. But otherwise, I mean, a small tactic you can also do is generally sort of trying to sneak up here. Even from the building, it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to see. And then you can, for example, set up harassment here, set up some defences, maybe some troops to sort of draw in the attacker or the defender there. So that's also a little trick you can try pulling off as a thought. And generally, as the southern player, want to try and harass this as much as possible, if not harass over here. And again, that's what the northern player much more seriously has to worry about compared to the southern player. Though it can also happen, that should not be left out. But overall, I think that sort of covers the major points, even some minor points on this map. The buildings overall are largely suited for anti-warfare due to having several windows. And this is basically, I mean, it covers bugger all. It's basically just there for Partisans, Fallschirmjägers and Jäger infantry to sort of appear up from, like some World War II Spanish Inquisition. No one expects the German Luftwaffe's ground forces to appear. Yeah, our chief weapons are supplies and a lot of bullets. So a quick note there as well. But generally, again, most fighting happens around here, so we'll try and account for that. And also, this building is again a good latch point for either defending either way or attacking either way. So overall, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. I hope this gave you a better grasp of Langraskaya, how to get a bit more out of it, how to confound and outplay your opponent a bit more. And if you did, you know, feel free to subscribe, share it with your friends, family, your pets, enemies, your enemies' pets, and so on. But thank you all for watching, and hope you enjoyed, hope you learned, and hope you'll keep watching. Cheers!